hello, Jenya. It's really good to see you. Thank you for joining me from Kiev and for agreeing to contribute to this series on queer resistance and solidarity. I can see that you're wearing your Pride t-shirt. I don't know if you want to show it to us on the screen and tell us a little bit about it.
Show it like this way, maybe, so people will see that.
So what does it actually say on the t-shirt?
It's saying like Kiev Pride, like the name of the organization.
I'm happy to see you wearing that today. And I'm also very happy and relieved actually to see that you're safe. But I do know that you have family and friends in the Donbass region, and I know that you're very worried about them. So I don't want to ignore the fact that, you know, there's a lot of anxiety at the moment, and the situation is changing moment by moment on the ground. And although we're going to be focusing very much on queer resistance and solidarity today, that's not to ignore that beyond the queer perspective, there is a whole much bigger perspective in terms of what's going on for people throughout the country. But can we start maybe by introducing ourselves? You know, by now I'm Dawn River. I'm a queer academic in the School of Social Policy and Social Work in the College of Social Sciences at the University of Birmingham.
So my name is Zhenya, and I'm a queer activist. From 2019, I've been hired in the organization in Donbass, helping queer people in Donbass region. And in 2021, I started working in Kiev Pride. So it's like more global now. So me and my team are doing like the annual Kiev Pride March in the center of Kiev. Yeah.
Could you tell us how you identify? How would you describe your identity?
So I identify myself as a non-binary person. So yeah, and as for my pronouns, I use actually like most of them like he, she, and they at the same time. So there's no way for people to misgender me because they always hide because I'm fine with that.
And I think it's important for us to recognize that even whilst the war rages, we are still who we are. We bring our whole selves and the whole of our identity to the experience of war or whatever it is that we might be living through. And I'm aware that when we talk about LGBTIQ people, we are all different and we experience life in different ways. So I'd like to start by saying, could you tell us something about the way the war has affected life for LGBTIQ people in Ukraine? Clearly, we recognize within that descriptor, there will be gay men, lesbian women, trans people, people who identify as non-binary and queer, and each of their experiences may well be different.
Yeah, like many things actually changed. And like in the first maybe days of the war going, there was like a lot of panic maybe. People were afraid that they could just occupy Kiev and other cities. So queer people felt at risk at this moment. But I wanted to say that like actually queer people mobilized and they are doing all they can to help Ukraine to win this war. Like many people joined the army and fighting right now. Many of them are in Donbass right now, protecting my family as well as other families. Many are volunteering, like they help to find money, they help to find any like military stuff for the soldiers, because like it's kind of lacking right now. So we always have to find some more because yeah, our army is not like that perfect because it wasn't used to be this way. It's like we are still in this process of modernizing it. Yeah, and as for the organizations, we are and still are raising money, and we are providing as the same as Kiev Pride and other NGOs like Inside, Ukraine Pride, and many other more, raising money and like helping like people personally, right? Giving them money, food, medication, also helping with the evacuation because some of them actually decided to leave the country. Yes, some of them are in Germany now or in Poland or other countries. So it's also important to help them. And also like for those who are escaping war from Donbass or Kharkiv or other cities in the east of Ukraine, we are providing shelter in Lviv, in Chernivtsi, in the west of Ukraine, to be more precise. Yeah. So we are also like in this moment like fighting in different ways maybe, but still like we are whole like united as a nation right now.
You mentioned medication and also people seeking refuge in other countries. And we're aware from the news here that there is an issue, of course, for trans women who in Ukraine are not recognized as women and therefore have not been allowed to leave the country because the expectation is that the men will remain. So I don't know if that's a correct assumption or if that's actually the case. And if, you know, what role trans women are maybe playing in Ukraine at the moment.
Yeah, like about this issue, I wish like it wasn't happening, because it is happening actually in some cases. And like the problem is that some trans women didn't change their ID, so they are not seen as women actually. And yeah, this is the problem. But anyway, it's not illegal in Ukraine to change the ID, to have this full transition for trans women. So those who change that, they could actually easily leave the country if they wanted to. Yeah, and like the issue was for that mostly for those who didn't do it like in time. So they had to face it, and it's actually bad, and we have to change it somehow. But now it is the war, and it's impossible to change any laws right now. But I wish that like in some near future, it will be possible, and we will change the situation for the better.
And I suppose on the flip side of that, trans men are maybe able to leave the country under the identity of being female still.
Yeah, so because of this transphobia and the lack of knowledge, those who are working on the borders, they just like transphobic to trans women, yeah, like, and they see trans men as women, so they don't have any issues with passing them to other countries.
And in terms of medication that trans people need during, you know, their transition and beyond, how has that been in terms of getting medication into the country, or medication generally, actually, for anything that people may need in the Ukraine?
Yeah, like I know, like I actually like didn't like go to the drugstores like all around my city, but so I don't know like the whole situation, but in the first weeks of the war, it's been really problematic for people to get any medication, because everyone was trying to buy as much as possible for them, and it created some problem. And still, yeah, there are some issues, especially with those that are needed for trans women and trans people in general. And I know that the organizations are also working on it. So they are looking for the medication in Poland or Hungary or any other closest country to us, and buying it and like taking it to Ukraine, so we can provide people in need with those.
And when we think about lesbians, there's a perception that lesbians are more likely to join the military. So not wanting to make light of this, but do you see that lesbians have very much played a role within the military in the Ukraine?
I think that like in this situation, it's like mostly equal for everyone, like for any group of people, because yeah, I also like I get this stereotype, because yeah, like some lesbians who are seeking this masculinity, yeah, they are going to the army, yeah, like they are fighting. But like nowadays in Ukraine, they have like gay men as well fighting, and trans people fighting, and lesbians fighting, like all who are capable of fighting went to war. So I was trying to like think about that like in my free time, but yeah, like I see them like everywhere, like mostly like an equal way, like 50 and 50.
And is that because of the war, that there is this solidarity and everybody is coming together to do whatever they can to support the war effort, whether it might be taking up arms and actually fighting, or, as you have said, using their queer networks to provide food and shelter, to raise money, to actually contribute as queer activists to the wider society and to defending your country?
It's like, again, like most of those who had experience of fighting in Donbass, like before the 2022, they joined the army again, even though they were veterans. So they didn't need to go and fight again, but it was their decision and they had this experience, so why not? And those who are not capable of fighting, they are like in Kiev and Lviv, and they are helping those who are fighting. So it's again this equality and solidarity between people, the understanding that if you know capable of fighting, you can do whatever you can to help. And it's not about being gay or lesbian or trans, it's just about helping and like building the future for all of us.
And it's interesting you say that, because do you feel that there is much more understanding of the way LGBTIQ people contribute to society as a whole? Do you think this war, or even going back to the invasion in 2013 and what's happened since, has led people in the Ukraine to understand the contribution that LGBTIQ people make? Has it changed the perception of queer people within the Ukraine?
Yeah, I think yes, because yeah, like there are still some far-right, some homophobic people, transphobic people who don't get the idea, yeah, and like they don't accept those people. They don't accept us, I mean. But still, like in 2013, the situation was much different. Like before that, we have the pro-Russian dictator Yanukovych, yeah, and he was trying to copycat all the laws from Russia. So, and there was not much knowledge about LGBTQ plus rights, and like any attempt of having some demonstration about human rights or LGBTQ plus community was actually banned, or there were some fightings, yeah, and problems with the law, with the police and all that stuff. And after the Maidan, yeah, and yeah, like we had some problems like in 2015, for example, but it's still like we had this freedom to develop all this discourse, all this discussion in public. So more and more people started to visit Pride, for example. Like in 2019, there had like 6,000 or 7,000 people at the Pride March in Kiev. And yeah, it's changing because like I even like see now, like we had like some laws that were developing, and they had to be accepted in the near future, protecting queer people and also providing some equality and like visibility of them. And also I see now that like many governmental structures are also like helping us in this way. Like we have this Ukraine UA account that posts like stories of queer soldiers who used to be like, for example, drag queens before the war. And like when the war started, like this guy just went fighting. And there was also like some dancer, he was practicing work, and like now he's also fighting. And it's cool that like such accounts having like several millions of subscribers all around Ukraine, they recognize us and show us in such way, like not just like some minority, yeah, like some small group of people who are not accepted and like that we are weak and like don't have any rights, but as fighters who are also alongside other Ukrainians doing their job.
So that's the sort of historical perspective in a nutshell. I know it's a very complex history and there's so much more you could say, but looking forward, you know, this is a moment in history that is going to change Ukraine, change us within Europe, maybe. Well, we can already see that it's changing the alliances and the way that people are working in solidarity across Europe with the Ukraine and actually globally. What are your hopes for the future for the people of Ukraine, and specifically for LGBTIQ people, whether they have remained in Ukraine or sought refuge in other countries?
So yeah, like maybe like in the first 2 weeks of the war, I had some thoughts about that. Like I was kind of afraid of radicalization after the war. Yeah, but like as for now, I actually see like that. I'm hoping that like it's gonna be like the best of the best possible variants actually, because the queer people are recognized. Yeah, and like I see many activists like, and we are discussing all this stuff, yeah, with each other, and like they saying like there's no other way as to accept us, to give us rights after the war. And I'm also like hoping and believing that maybe Ukraine is in some way setting up the trend for the whole Europe, that actually we can change, and we can change very fast, and that we are ready to join all this European family, yeah, and um, fighting and building the democracy and doing like everything possible to for the people to have normal lives and be equal, and yeah.
And we saw, for example, through the Eurovision Song Contest, how much support the people of Europe were giving to Ukrainian people. Solidarity has been an important part of building resistance and fighting for human rights and social justice. And I think within our queer networks, what we've shown is that we can build solidarity internationally across our LGBTIQ networks. But what you've pointed out, which is crucial, is that as LGBTIQ people, we also build solidarity with others outside of our networks, and contribute to society and build resistance and solidarity in a way that benefits everybody in terms of their human rights and social justice. And on that point, I would like to just think briefly about the LGBTIQ people in Russia, because we're aware that that has been a source of resistance and uprising in the past within Russia, as queer people have spoken out against social injustice and their lack of human rights. So also thinking about how we build alliances beyond the divisions that this war has created, I wonder if you have any hope for how the queer community might heal some of their divisions in a more progressive and positive way.
Talking about helping them and the connection to them, like I personally know some queer people from Russia, and like we keep in touch still. And unfortunately, they had to actually move from Russia to safer places. Some of them even were living in Ukraine and live in Ukraine much, because they saw future in Ukraine. That they seen like Ukraine having its own path and like doing like all the best. And they were also helping in that. Yeah, and as for now, I see that actually many queer and not queer activists from Russia, who are mostly like not organizations but individuals, yeah, they are doing their best to help Ukrainians who were sent to Russia by force. They help them to evacuate to other countries from Russia, like for example, to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Yeah, and maybe I think yes, it is very important to have some contact with them, and I see that they're actually doing like a lot of work. But as for me now, as for Ukrainian activists, yeah, it's for me, it's not the time that I'm ready to talk to them. I see what they do, and I really appreciate that. And I know some just like ordinary like gay people who are just know the situation and they don't like the situation. But I think maybe like if this collective trauma has to pass away after I'm ready to talk to them, but still they deserve acceptance and support also. But like what I don't like, that some activists from Russia are trying to colonize Ukraine in the imperial way as Putin does, because when they're trying to help, they're using this narrative of connection, like stating that Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia are all the same, and that we have the same problems, but we are not, because we don't have Putin, we don't have gay propaganda law, we don't have the context of living in Russia, so we are different. And yeah, like maybe we do have some chance to unite with them and to fight together, but like in this situation, it's kind of hard for me as an activist, as a person, to say something about that.
Yeah, and you just highlight just how complex the political situation actually is. So to end on a positive note, really, if we can take any positives from such a traumatic situation, you've talked about collective trauma. But I think wanting to acknowledge and recognize the resilience, the resistance, the solidarity that you and the people of Ukraine are showing to each other, and how that is helping you to believe in a more positive and hopeful future, has been incredible to bear witness to.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add that also like stating this positive like ending to the conversation, that I really like appreciate the fact that actually many people are now united. In some other like maybe not that near future, we are all will be united. Like I mean, here of the world, like all the queer people of any continent, they will be doing this stuff. They will be equal, and yeah.
Thank you. So I wish you all the very best, and I look forward to other conversations about resistance and solidarity. I think keeping the conversations alive and thinking about the ways that we can work together to defend human rights and to support social justice.